Hello, this is part 19 of our game making tutorial. We're going to do more AI stuff, but I just tested the last batch of source code I put up, and I had a weird problem where bullets couldn't hit exploding enemies. In fact, maybe they couldn't hit either type of enemy. And I looked into it, and I couldn't find anything wrong with the code at all. And as it happens, I was going to change the sprite for that bullet anyway, and so I did change the sprite, and it fixed it. So it's possible, depending on how you followed it, how you did your own sprite, that your bullet can pass through things if it must have been something to do with like the collision mask. But I checked the mask and it was there. It was small, but it was there. And so I don't totally understand what happens, but it's fixed now. And as you see, the new sprite I've got is much bigger. So I was going to do this change anyway, like I say. Jan Willem Nijman of Vlambeer is a big proponent of big bullets, and it's one of his tips for making a game feel better, is just make the bullets bigger. Like, however big they are, just make them bigger. And our bullets was very small, and particularly on like a slow firing gun, that feels weird. Or it feels just unsatisfying, not much is happening. So I made it bigger. And at some point we're going to change the function of that weapon a little bit. Are we? Yeah, a little bit. So I've been trying to think about what we should do with this game. There's a few bits of housekeeping we need to do first, and also I'll just show you how this bullet works. I'll just show you how it looks and the fact that it works. And God, yeah, what's that? What's it upset about now? Oh, okay, that must be when I was testing a stream or something. I pressed a bunch of keys. It's all gonna be fine. This is a bit more of an experimental one because I kind of want to redesign how things work a bit. So, oh for fuck's sake. Running in windowed mode is just horrible. Don't ever do it. I have to because otherwise it doesn't record. But actually, even at this is the annoying rate of fire, like that it starts at. And I think we'll increase this at some point. But even then, it's quite a lot better. Just feels like it's doing more. We can also increase the bullet speed if we want to make it feel better, and some other stuff. God, that was just an absolute train wreck. Alright, so what I want to do is... I was trying to think of, we've got two enemy types, we've got two weapons, and the weapons interact with each other, but the enemies don't, except in that the exploding one explodes and damages everything. And the way the exploding one explodes is almost too good. It detonates any nearby exploding enemies, they themselves detonate, and it's by far the best way to do any kind of damage. And so you just pretty much shoot them all the time, and once you get that gun up to a decent fire rate by collecting all those little power-ups, there's no point in even bothering with the interaction between enemies, you just mow everything down. I don't really like that, and since we're doing AI, I was trying to think about, you've got these exploding enemies seeking you, that's their AI behaviour. I wish the initials for AI were different. There's an idle state and there's an alert state. When they see you, they go into the alert state. When they're in the alert state, they go towards you. Do they go faster? I thought they went faster. Maybe they don't. And so I was thinking about what can we do for the green enemy. And I don't want the green enemy just to rush towards you. I think that's boring. I'd like to do something different. And I think for a long time I've had this idea of it would be great if one of the enemies wanted to eat your bullets. Or just those water shots, the wave gun fires, those things kind of lie on the ground. And it'd be great if the green enemy was trying to gobble them up, so I want to do that. And then I thought, well, it'd be great if you could also use that mechanic to kind of bait him into eating other enemies. So you fire your wave gun at the red enemies, and it sticks to them, and then the green enemies chase the red enemies and eat them. And then, because the red enemies are exploding enemies, if you then shoot the green enemy explodes. And that's great, but completely redundant because you might as well just shoot the red enemy, right? So I think what we'll do is we'll make the red enemies not explode. And the only way to get an explosion, that big eruption of flying into chunks, all of which can hit something else and blow something else up, that really great payoff, that should be the reward for doing this kind of more involved mechanical manipulation of tricking things into eating things and setting up something and then detonating it, rather than just shoot one thing. That's currently the cost of doing that spectacular thing right now is just press fire, which is Not a good proportional relationship. So I think we'll have two kinds of enemies. The red one will no longer be the exploding enemy. I think we'll call it the swarmer, and I think I'll make it small. I'm just going to run you through my whole plan for this because so you know why we're doing what we're doing. The plan may change as we go. I might find it sucks and might have to change it, and I almost certainly won't do all of this in this episode. So swarmers will be small red things, and if you shoot them with the gun, they'll still have this gun. I think I'll make it more rapid fire, and we'll scrap that thing about getting faster and faster firing as you collect bits. I don't know what the scoring mechanic will be, but there won't be that. So you'll have a rapid fire gun. In fact, let's just do that now. Let's just make it more rapid fire, so that I'm not completely talking in theory. Right now, the rate of fire, the seconds between shots, is defined by 5 divided by the owner's power. So as the owner's power goes up, this figure goes down, which means the time between shots goes down, which means you fire more rapidly. All this says is just make our rate of fire proportional to the owner's power, the owner being the player. But now let's forget that. Put 2 slashes in front of something and makes it a comment. And if the owner's power is like 100, we'd have 5 divided by 100, which is 20. And sorry, I'm not thinking correct. 1 divided by 20, right? So something like that. That's probably a bit too much. Let's try 1 divided by 15. Let's try 10. Doesn't need to be super rapid fire. So you can write, I mean obviously that's 0.1, but if you're trying to do, it's easy to write that as a decimal. But if you figured out you wanted it to be 1 every 50, then it's easier to type 1 divided by 50 than it is to figure out what the actual decimal is. Right, so I'll show you that. So you'll have a rapid fire gun, you'll be able to shoot these swarmers, and that will be a traditional video game interaction. Fire bullet at thing dies. There we go. See, that feels great. It's too powerful right now, but the point is that I think we'll have more of these red enemies, the swarmers, and they won't blow up, so they won't be killing each other, so there'll be lots of them you have to deal with them. Now they home in on you, that feels a lot more scary, particularly when there's a lot of them. Like if we have a bunch of them chasing us, let's just walk around for a while. It has this kind of like horde feel, which is very cool. And so mowing those down will be kind of fun in a very traditional way. Video games are a place where tradition means mowing down hordes and hordes of things. And then these guys, I think we might have them, when they're just gibbering around like this, maybe they'll be immune to your gun. Your bullets will bounce off them, they'll be totally impervious. And then the wave gun, this one, if you fire that at them, they just eat it up, and they get bigger and bigger, and they maybe get faster as they get bigger. So the wave gun is no good against them, bullets are no good against them. The only way you can defeat them is to fire your wave gun at these guys, and they will have the wave stick to them, and then the green guys will eat the red guys, and maybe we could even have the green guys be translucent, and you can see the red guys inside them, so you can see how many they've eaten, and the more they've eaten, the more they explode when you finally kill them. So once they've got those inside them, then you can shoot them with a conventional gun, because the conventional gun hits the explodey guys inside, or the red guys inside, and that makes it detonate. It's kind of like when they eat the enemies, it's sort of like a dangerous cocktail of chemicals. Like when the green guys eat the red guys, it forms this volatile concoction, and if put under any kind of shock or pressure, that's when it explodes. And the more of them it has, the more unstable it is, the more volatile it is. And so if you manage to trick multiple green enemies into multiple red enemies, then you can set off this chain reaction. And maybe that won't be enough. Maybe it'll be too rare for you to ever have more than one green enemy that has a red enemy in it. But on the other hand, maybe that'll be the game. Maybe that'll be setting up these chain reactions is the whole point, and you have to do that, and that's why it's challenging. And then we score you on it and say, like, your points are not just how many things you kill, but it's how many did you kill in one big chain reaction. And something like that could be really satisfying. So that's my theory. That's what we'll try and do. And before we do that, we're going to do a quick bit of housekeeping, because someone pointed out that if you click New Game right now, okay, if you have a save file already, I guess we don't have a save file for some reason. But if you pick up weapons, then you complete a level. Oh yes, because your weapons aren't saved till you complete the level, I think. Yeah. So if you pick up weapons, complete a level, then go to New Game, then should we try this? No, I can't complete the level. Then you will start a new game, but you'll still have your weapons. We never delete the inventory file. So just to recap, when we initialize room, let's look at what happens every time we enter a room, including when we start a new game. We load our inventory file, and that makes sense if the reason we're starting a room is we've just started up the game, and the game is ready in our save file and says, oh, you're on level 2, let's take you to level 2. What do you have in your inventory? Let's give you all that stuff back. That makes sense, but if you start a new game, we don't want to load your inventory. And so we could put like a conditional here, but I would rather keep the script universal and make it work the same way all the time. And what you really want to do is if you've chosen to start a new game, right now we don't have anything like save slots. So you are saying, wipe my progress, start again. So let's just dupe our load inventory script, and we're going to call it delete inventory. Sorry, I think we've done this before, but just to clarify, I right-clicked on load inventory and said duplicate. And that's if the script is going to refer to a lot of the same things, that's a handy thing to do. And we can forget all this stuff. All we want this to say doesn't need to relate to the player. We're just interested in this file, and if it exists, we want to delete it. So we don't care about whether the player exists. All we want to know is, does that file exist? And if it does exist, then file delete that file, get rid of it. And that's it. And then all we need to do then is figure out when that should run. We want it to run when we click new game. Where do we click new game? We click it in the menus. Where does the menu display the buttons and all the handle them? That's all done in the draw GUI event, just because it's easier to display them and handle the click at the same time. Keep all that code in one place. And it's here, and we say, we'll just set it there. And click new game, delete inventory. I have tested that offline, so I won't do it now because it involves, in order to test that, I would have to complete a level to create the save file, then go back and redo it, and that means either completing a whole level, which takes a lot of walking around, and if you fail it takes longer, or going back and modifying the values for how long it takes to complete a level as a debug test, and then doing it, and then setting it all back again. So it's too much work for a thing that's hopefully simple to understand, and you can test it yourself if you don't believe me. So that's that done. I think that's all of the housekeeping. I have a little list of, I've written down all the steps that it will take to do this thing. It feels like maybe this is one episode and that's another episode, I don't know. We'll see how we go. Let's do the ritual check of, are we actually streaming? Yes. I keep saying streaming when I mean recording. Recording. Alright, we've got the bigger red bullet, we've got delete inventory, we've got, oh yeah, I was going to reduce the enemy spawn, should I do that? Let's not do that yet. So, we're going to call the green ones boomers, I think, and the next thing I want to do is make the boomers eat water and grow. So, this is where we get into the sort of AI stuff. AI is probably a grand word for this, but we want to make eat water. I wish I'd come up with I wish I could come up with a better name for what this stuff is, because it looks like water, so we're calling it that, but maybe we'll call it, like, I mean, that's just nonsense, isn't it? Eat globs. Let's just call them globs. And that's a much more satisfying thing to say. So, we're going to do this pretty much the way we do most things. Well, the behaviour I'm looking for is not just that he eats them if they happen to touch him, but I want him to actively seek them out. That's the kind of AI part. So, we want to say, let's just find, is there one at all? And if so, find the nearest one. And we're going to do that. That's nearest blob equals instance nearest xy, our coordinates, liquid shot. Maybe in future we'll create other kinds of globs and give them a glob parent, and they can all be children of their glob parent. But for now we'll just directly reference liquid shot because that's the only thing we care about. And then we say if instance exists nearest glob, then we need to check a couple of things. One is, let's say, detection range, something like 400. Maybe we'll. Hello? Okay. Click some register. Let's put a couple of variables up here. So detection range will be like 400. That's how far away that he will kind of see the glob. I think we might say he smells it. And then we'll have like each range, and that's how close it has to be to eat it, and we'll say 10. We don't need that yet, but so first thing we'll check is if point distance between nearest, actually let's start with our coordinates, our x and y, and nearest glob.x, nearest glob.y is less than our detection range. So that says if the distance between our location and this nearest glob, which we know we found because we've checked that it exists, is less than this detection range figure, then let's seek it. And that will be us. Oh no, wait, not yet. Can we see it? Let's label all of these. Is there a glob? If so, is it near enough that I can smell it? And then maybe say, okay, but can I get there? And this won't be a completely reliable check for whether we can reach it physically, because we're quite wide and we're only checking a line of sight, but we are going to check the line of sight. So if I have, if you remember the script we wrote last time, if it's going to pop up, if I have line of sight to nearest blob, what a useful function. I actually don't have that in its signature, I probably should. Then let's actually go there. Direction, change direction to go towards the glob. We can just copy and paste that whole thing because that was a similar function. The direction from us, x and y, to the nearest globs, x and y. What did I just click? Okay, that. Let's maximize this. Yes to all, seek the glob. And is that it? Possibly. I guess, actually, let's, we want to check distance again. We want to check if the distance is less than detection range. Less than eat range, see if we should actually eat it. So since we're going to use that twice, let's actually store it in a variable. Distance to glob equals that. And now all we have to do is check is distance to glob less than detection range, and so this is making our code more readable already. And if we can see it, then we head towards it, and then we say if distance to glob is less than eat range, then for now let's just say with nearest glob instance destroy. So all that will happen right now, just closing all these brackets, all these braces, all that will happen right now is if we can see it, we'll go towards it and it's in a certain range, and then once we get close enough, we'll destroy it. And once we destroy it, next time we come back to the step will finish, next step will come back here, and we'll look for another one, and if there isn't another one, we'll stop doing this behaviour and we'll just carry on in whatever direction we're going in. And as with the seeking enemy, the behaviour for once we've lost our objective, once we have nothing to do, is really just carry on going in the current direction until you hit something, and then once you hit it, bounce randomly. And that is stuff that's the stay inside the room script, or maybe it's the enemy consumer solids, a bit of both. Those both bounce you off things. And that happens anyway, and we want that to happen even if you are seeking something. If you're seeking a liquid shot, you want to consume a glob, we've all been there, and there's a solid obstacle in the way, then naturally the thing you do when you hit the solid obstacle is bounce off and do the normal bouncing behaviour. So we haven't even set up AI states for this. Previously we did an idle state and an alert state. You could, in theory, say create an idle state and then create another one for seeking glob. But right now I don't need the behaviours to be any different in those two states. In both states I want you to stop if you hit a solid object. In both states I want you to bounce off the edge of the room. In both states I want you to keep seeking globs, even if you've already got a glob you're going towards. If we do this check again while you're already seeking a glob, and the result is a different glob that's now on closer, then I want you to seek that because it's closer, right? So those globs are moving around, so that will happen all the time. You'll want to be chasing a glob that's across the other side of the room, and you'll fire a new glob at him, and he'll suddenly turn around and seek that, hopefully. So we want that to happen. We want that to happen whether he's idle or seeking globs. Now let's find out if we made any stupid mistakes. Yeah, look at it! He eats it up! He drinks your milkshake! That's kind of adorable. Look, they kind of graze. The thing I'm really surprised by is, oh my god, I killed them all. The thing I'm really surprised by is that it takes them a while, right? They go towards it and they really munch for a bit. Because technically they can destroy one every step, and that's 60 times a second. They can destroy 60 wavicles a second, whatever you want to call these blobs. And yeah, it's also still a fire hose, or like a riot hose. I think maybe we'll be able to reduce the enemy frequency because that's kind of getting crazy. But yeah, isn't that adorable? They're like little grazing cattle. And they don't seek you, whereas these guys do. So now, like, relatively speaking, the green ones seem friendlier by comparison. Alright. I wonder if maybe there's enough stuff here that we can test that new green thing. No, not really. Forget that. Okay, that's great. What did I just think? Oh yeah, let's reduce the frequency with which enemies spawn. Do you remember the thing that spawns the enemies is the game object? That's kind of a global manager thing that's running all the time. And in our create event for that, we said something like seconds between enemy spawns, and we said that should be 1. I think it should be more like 10. So 1 every 10 seconds instead of 1 every 1 second. It should be more manageable for testing stuff. Okay, so now we're done. Enemy spawn down to 10, that's what I just said. Nuke boomers eat water, they don't grow yet, so let's do that. I think I might even start them out smaller than they currently are. So we could say image X scale, remember that's how wide we are, and image Y scale. Rather than set them both to 0.5 or set Y scale to X scale, we don't want to always be the same, so if we ever change this, or I have to change that as well. So I'll start out half the normal size, and they shrink when they're shot, which is okay. We might not keep that, but here, that thing where we used to shrink, now we'll, if we eat a glob, then we grow, we increase it by I think more like 0.1. And we might even check if image X scale is less than 2, then do that. And if we wanted to be a bit more explicit about what we're doing here, let's say growth rate equals 0.1 and maximum size equals 2. So this isn't really saving us any lines of code, in fact it's increasing the code, but it makes it clearer what we're saying. Here I'm almost tempted to put image Y scale plus growth rate, because that doesn't need changing even if we change the growth rate, and it looked a bit weird having one of them adding growth rate. It almost looked like we were saying the other one shouldn't increase, but in fact it was subtly different. It was an image X scale there, so I'll change that to be clearer. So they start out at half size. Every time they eat one they'll grow, and once they hit double size they will no longer... You could even have them no longer seek the blobs. Maybe that's too complicated. This also might be a can of worms we're opening here, because if they're next to a wall when they eat, then they'll grow into the wall and they could get stuck. Maybe we'll have it only happen if they won't get stuck. Okay, so they start nice and small. Oh wow, they grow pretty fast. They grow really fast. How big did they get? That's too big, isn't it? No, I guess that's not terrible. We could draw a sprite for that. It does seem like he's not growing any further, right? No! Oh my god, he went straight for me. Oh god, because they were coming out of me. That makes sense. Feed my pretty. Now, is he going to get stuck in a wall? Feed. Why isn't he growing more? Oh, I can shoot them directly, couldn't I? Yeah, see, they got stuck now. We can do... This isn't super important, so we could just take it out, but I think a quick and dirty check for this would be just if place meeting... Did we do that already, place meeting? It's like instance place, but it just tells you whether you hit something. If we're hitting a solid, then forget it. Go back to our old ImageX scale by reducing it by the same growth rate that we just, I guess we'll just copy and paste that, right? So that's not super elegant code, like we actually physically do grow, and then we check did we hit anything, and then if we did, we shrink again. A bit messy, but that should work fine, I think. I'm intrigued by the little guy who didn't seem to get bigger. First one seemed to get really big. Did I kill him? No, he's there, he's tiny. I brought him back from the dead. I can save him. I'll also push him out of the level. And so now let's do that. Oh, of course the problem is he's too big. So we'll do that again. Create the way seeds. Oh, he did kind of... Yeah, so he's not growing there, which is about right. But then if he eats it in the wild, hopefully he will. Yeah, that seems to work. Is he stuck? Yeah, he's stuck, isn't he? Is that a shunting problem or a growing problem? It might have been a shunting problem. Alright, well, see for yourself whether this is too buggy, and if it is, just take out the growing thing, because it's not that important. Curious though, is there a problem with my code? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Text workers in between two instances that have been done. Instance object. Yep. No, I don't know why that would fail. I guess we rotate, but then we should be an ellipse. Maybe we're not a perfect circle. I'm not going to spend too long on this, but I'm just curious. Yeah, we're not a circle, so we could rotate into a wall. So that's dumb. Is there an easy way to make us a perfect circle? There kind of is, and that would work, but it's inaccurate. So what we could do is, I know we can't crop it because we wiggle around, don't we? Let's take that, and then we're going to add like 5. We're doing a manual circle now. So instead of 0 on 5, and then this should be 71 minus 5, which is 66. And 66. So we've gone 5 in from every thing, and that's a pretty good fit. And we know that's circular because we just reduced it in all dimensions by the same amount. I wonder if the exploding enemies have the same problem. That looks pretty circular. I'm not going to worry about it. Hopefully that'll fix that. Who knows if it will. What's next on our list? They eat water when they grow. Water should stick to swarmers. Okay, so I also want the swarmers to be smaller. I think... Should I rename them? So, I can't remember if we've done this before, but let's use a useful function where we search in scripts. We go to scripts. So I'm going to do it again slower. Go to scripts and we say search in scripts. And then I'm going to paste in the name of the exploding enemy and see where it comes up. It's only actually named specifically in 3 places in our code. And yeah, we'll rename him. Because it's going to get weird, because we're going to get in a situation where actually this is the only enemy that doesn't explode. And so if they're called the exploding enemy, that's fucking strange. So let's open these references. I feel like it's trying to point me to it, but it's not actually where it's saying it is. Let's search for it. Oh, is it? It's when I did that search, which I'll do again, I forgot to check case sensitive, ignore comments, whole word only, all those things. It was finding exploding enemy chunk, because the first words of that is exploding enemy. So there it is. This is the spawning code for when we create an enemy. We pick whether it should be a swarmer or... We'll leave those as they are for now. And that didn't go red when I typed that, but that doesn't matter. That's just because it hasn't updated yet. I need to click OK on that. And then if we open up this, we should see that now Oh, Swarmer has gone red. Yeah, so they're called Swarmers, and on creation we will give them the same kind of, maybe even less, like 0.3 size. Make them really tiny. And they're not going to grow, they'll stay outside. And anything else we need to do with them? Actually, while we're editing that enemy spawning code, this thing where we said this is a function that chooses randomly between these three options, and we made two of the options be swarmers. We could make swarmers more common because we're making them smaller. They might be slower, maybe. So now we'll get 4 swarmers for every shrinking enemy that spawns on average. And yeah, where do we set their speed? Initialize enemy collision 150 random. Yeah, so normal speed. In fact, if I click that number 150, it tells us right down the bottom normal speed in pixels per second, which is lovely. But let's make it 100. That'll still be a threat, I think. Smaller. And then, alright, so we're going to make shots stick to them at some point, and then we've got to make the other ones eat them, and that's going to be interesting. Oh my god, they're super tiny. Okay, maybe we'll just do a half. And then when it hit us, it explode all the same force. Okay. We'll change that maybe up to 0.6. And now, one thing I'm wondering about is when a wave, what's it called, liquid shot. When a liquid shot, let's see where that is referenced. That's only in 2 places too. I'm going to rename liquid shot to glob. Oh glob. And then just double click these references to change everywhere that we said liquid shot and change it to oh glob. Let's say OK to that. You see liquid shot has gone grey, and when we type oh glob it goes red to show that it recognises it. So our glob, when it hits a exploding enemy, should stick to it. So we already have some code for when it hits an enemy. We have this enemy hit thing. If we hit an enemy, then we want to shunt it. But we can also check, is this enemy a exploding enemy? So we'll say if enemy hit, we want to check its type, which is its object index. That is, enemy hit is an instance. Here we say instance place. An instance exists, we're talking about one particular enemy, and then we want to check, is that one particular enemy, which object is it made of? Which type is it? So enemy hits object index is explode. No, I'm already screwing this up. Swarmer. Then what do we want to do to it? What we might want to do, I want this to stick to them. So what I really want to say is something like x equals enemy hit dot x. But I'm going to change this in a minute because this is the wrong place to do this. But I'll label it as a follow the guy we stuck to. Problem with this is this only happens when we hit an enemy. I guess actually this would probably work because you're going to be re-hitting him every frame. But what I was thinking about is maybe this guy, when you first hit an enemy, you want to stick to him and then stay on that one. So actually what we're going to do is say if instance exists enemy hit, then let's see. I think here we want to say something like host equals enemy hit. So remember who we hit. And then this stuff about following him, we won't do this at all here. We'll say if instance exists host if we have a host, then follow the host, not the enemy. So we'll replace the word enemy hit with the word host. Although we'll click too many times and it won't work. So if we have a host, then follow the guy we stuck to. And this thing about looking for a host, we actually don't want to do that if we have one. So let's put this up top, and then only if we don't have a host should we look for this enemy hit character and see if he's a good host for us. So once we are attached to a host, we no longer look for enemies, we no longer shunt them, and we'll stick to our guy forever. Or we'll this might lag behind a little bit because it depends on whether his X and Y have been updated this spring before ours or not. But we can fix that if it turns out to be a big visual problem. So if we have a host, then follow him. If we don't have a host, see if we hit an enemy. If we did hit an enemy, see if he's the right type to be a host. If he is the right type, then make him become a host. Maybe I'll write all that out, because that was a lot of conditionals. If we're stuck to someone, follow the guy we're stuck to. If we haven't stuck to anyone yet, did we hit anyone at all? If so, was it the type we can stick to? And if so, make that enemy a new host. Host equals enemy hit. And either way, whether it was a good host or not, we still want to shunt it. And then that'll be it for that frame, and then next frame we'll come around and find we do have a host. The only extra thing we need to do here is we started talking about this host thing, and the first time we checked this ever, we have no idea who the host is, because if it hasn't been set, GameMaker doesn't know what that is. So we need to initialize it in our create event, like anything else. Host equals, and we're saying no one. No one is a variable that means, it's sort of if you're going to store a instance, a thing, in a variable, then when it is that thing, it'll be some number that relates to that thing, and when it's nothing, instead of writing 0, you write no one. And no one is a special word that GameMaker will, every time you run an existence check on no one, it will always fail, in theory. The reason you don't write 0 is that 0 might actually be an object. In heat signature, quite often when you start the game, I think maybe every time you start the game, the camera object is object 0. And so if I was to say, if instance exists host right now, that would actually be passed as true. It would say, oh yeah, there's a camera. And if you're wondering if that ever completely broke my brain, it did, because once upon a time, the instance nearest function of GameMaker would sometimes return 0 instead of no one. So it would commit the very mistake I'm telling you not to commit. And if you were looking at that variable, if you asked it, hey, where's the nearest instance, and it said 0 back to you, you'd think, well, that's weird. 0 is the nearest instance? What's 0? But if you're just passing that into some other part of your massively complicated code, and it's suddenly trying to apply some logic that's meant for spaceships onto the camera, and it crashes because of that, it is the weirdest thing. It would just drove me crazy. I just had no fucking idea what was happening. I believe they fixed that bug now, but heat signature's code is full of all these like little special words and workarounds to make sure that can never happen again. Like, I have my own special no one object. I created a new object just to have something that will definitely never exist. Anyway, for your purposes, let's just write host equals no one. Is that enough? Have we done it all? Let's see. So our globs will shunt everybody, but they'll only stick to red guys. To swarmers. Yeah, it's 6 gen. I guess there's no limit on how many can stick to him. It looks kind of good though. I like it. So now, we haven't told green guys to eat red guys, but we have told them to eat the wave stuff, and so they should at least go towards these guys if we can get two of them remotely near each other. Yeah, look at that. It's going to eat you. It's going to eat you, asshole. It's not actually going to eat you. It's going to eat some stuff off your back. It's going to clean you. Do you know, I think maybe this food shouldn't shunt. Oh, it's great sticking to them and shunting them back. This is already, I mean, it's not working yet, but it's already way more interesting than it was, right? We've got this weird ecosystem going on. Okay, so I'm going to actually change the, when a glob hits a woman, an enemy, we're going to check its type. If it's a swarmer, then it's our host, and we shunt it. So we're going to move that shunting code into that code that says we, that it's a valid host for us, then we do shunt it. And if it's not a valid host, we're not even going to shunt it. So our globs will no longer shunt non-hosts. Our globs will no longer shunt we're going to call them boomers. I need to get my terminology right. So shrinking enemies are now called boomers because they will eventually blow up. They don't right now. But let's search for shrinking enemy. And don't care where it is. Oh, actually it's in the same place. So now we have a thing called a boomer, and when we spawn enemies we choose between boomer, swarmer, 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 and swarmer. It sounds like a law firm. So boomers and swarmers, and that's what I'm going to call them forever, and I'll never get them mixed up or use the old names ever again. Boomer, swarmer, and swarmer, swarmer. Attorneys at law. So these guys get shunted, and it sticks to them. These guys don't get shunted. Oh my god! They don't get shunted. They eat it, and because they're not being knocked back and they're growing at an extreme rate, they can instantly kill you if you're right next to them when it happens. Did it seem like he shrunk afterwards? There's something slightly strange going on with his eyes, but it's working. It's having an intended effect generally. So this gun is way over bad now. Like I can just actually no. When he's big, he takes a lot of hits. In fact, God, even then I can't complete the level because he has a lot of size to lose when he shrinks now. And each time he loses some size, he puts down some of that power-up juice. So I was wondering if maybe it was enough to get a really good power-up. There's a million ways to make this stuff sticking to them look better, but I'm really surprised at how good it looks already. Like, it would be quite nice if it didn't congeal behind them. It's always nice when something doesn't congeal behind you. But in general, I quite like it. Globs stick to swarmers. I wonder if, what would it be like if we just made, I'm thinking maybe we'll leave it there for today and we'll do the eating and exploding in a future date. But one thing I would like to try is, what's it like if swarmers are very slow? So right now there are 100, we could halve that again, or reduce it by another 50, make it, or maybe not even that, maybe like 25, and then we'll make boomers a bit slower, so just so they're not completely messing up your day. Right now they're 90, let's make them 50. And what I want to do with boomers eventually actually is like have them, when they're small, have them be slow, and as they get bigger they can move faster because they've just got more, I don't know, muscle more stuff to move around. But we won't do that just yet. And then the other thing I was thinking of doing was let's restore the quite rapid rate of enemy spawning, 1 second, and let's make boomer, swarmer, swarmer, and swarmer attorneys at law the boomer, swarmer, 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 swarmer attorneys at law. If anyone wants to count those and see if I got it right, I'll be fascinated to know. So there's going to be a lot of swarmers for every boomer. Maybe still not enough. Obviously there's a much more efficient way of writing that randomization equation. Oh yeah, they're really slow. So they can see me and they home in on me, but not anytime soon. And of course I can probably still jump them. Oh my god, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to jump them. Yeah, so you can jump them back, but there's a lot of them. I get them. The trouble is now they're so easy to avoid, it's going to be quite hard to make them hoard, to make them cluster. It's 100 times more ominous, isn't it? They're really scary now. Like before they were aggressive enemies, they were monsters, but now they're just creeps. Now they're just fucking weird. What? What do you want from me? What do you want from me? What? It'd always be better if before they were a little bit too hard to avoid, and now I kind of want them to seek me better. I want them to, like, Oh, their little staring eyes, they're terrifying. This is horrible. But yeah, this is what I want. I want, like, if these guys weren't going to chain reaction, it would be great to just, like, fire a bunch of those bullets into them and be splatting them all over the place and try to keep them away from them. Whoa! Well, I think we can end on that.